I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and the love and care you guys extend and share my way from the corazón. Gracias. Now to get into the story on him. Today is going to touch a little bit on the feeling that not a lot of people speak on, which is Wicked from Wilmas, right? But it's going to be a little different. For example, you guys know I've been going through it, contrary to what people think, I step back. I'm not against nobody but them cats, right? For personal reasons. But never no weenie stuff, right? Anyways, I'm just on here to open that glimpse for camaradas norteños that are about to go in that expect one thing and it's gonna be different, right? Which is what it's gonna be about today. You see, there's a lot of things going on right now that are washing up camaradas. You go in there full force, thinking, I was that individual, right? I want to prove myself in blood. Every time that door cracked, it was work time, right? Till I got sat down and my ears got smacked back by a pili and it's not how things function, right? Torpedoes, there's thousands. I write mind how to do things, analyze things, make money brings a lot more value. But politics are tricky, and it's what's gonna be about today. I've been on the phone with, I'll just say camaradas. I will not put, the angle of the prison because it's recent and, well, who knows where they're gonna end up at, right? After everything's said and done. But I got a couple stories on Wicked and, this has a lot to do with it, right? But basically, the camaradas, they were in a prison in a 180 and, there was a cat that came out, right? He's not out there in the flow. He wasn't even amongst camaradas inside. As you guys know, MF, for whatever their reasons are, they're making camaradas state and feds, right? And there is a lot of camaradas that the minute they get put or blessed, right, they want to tell the world. They want to insert their power, minimize everybody they leave behind, right? Asureños. And then there's those that are aware how the squad works, the Federicos work, so they still use their handler, padrino, their pili, to play the part, even though they're already there, right? But the longer ears don't know about him being a pili, the longer he lasts without having a lot of issues, right? Because it comes with the territory. Which all this is understood, and at the time when I was active, I respected more Vato that did this, but nevertheless, there's a time of no shoes, right? So, my question, I guess, going into this is, do you guys think a camarada that's holding power for another pili on the yard should have the right to know that he's not bumping heads with another camarada to hold the yard down for pilis? And he should know that you're a pili even though you're trying to protect that from getting out, right? But anyways, I don't take you back when Wicked was shortly made, right? This was 2018, before I got out the feds, right? There was a big issue, right, in Washington, in a federal joint prison, whatever you want to call it, right? Basically, there was a camarada, right, from Pico Nuevo, we'll just call him S. He was holding the yard. As I came across it, right, he was there already for a couple years, right, and he was holding it down for Pee Wee and another couple Peelies, right. He was doing his thing, and of course, Avenues Feria was touching base where it needed to get, right. More so with Pee Wee, I'll just leave it less confusing, right. Nevertheless, this was after Homeboy Wicked had left Adwater, right, where there was this big wave of Billy's getting blessed, right, by that old man by Venice. He got to the yard, and again, he just had gotten blessed by that old man, right, that he had a lot of respect and who at one point in the feds. But he was on that tip because, well, at the time, Wilmas was on fire, right, in the sense with the feds, right. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of racketeering acts. They were after Sleepy, Raul. He wanted to stay Lolo, right? He had his things on the streets, but it was more like, you're doing it for me, but in reality, it's for the old man, right? As you guys will hear in the next stories, I think it's the reason why he got blessed, right? Nevertheless, he gets to the yard, and, the word is that he wanted to work, right? He wanted to do his thing, and he was representing Rube. So of course, S from Pico, he just said he didn't verify, right? Remember, Pee Wee's an Adwater too, so it shouldn't be that difficult, right? But for whatever reason, Pee Wee had against Rube, because it was also the time that Rube was being power hungry, right, with other Peelies. And he basically, you said he had never heard of Wicked. Keep in mind, Wicked had just came from Adwater. He had gotten blessed in Adwater as a member. Just didn't want to put it on blast, right? Again, my belief is it's smart, right? But I also believe that if there's a solid camarada on the yard doing things correctly, he has a right to know, right? Pull him to the side. Look, Trip, I got blessed. Verify this with my padrinos. You keep doing your thing. Leave me in the shadow. Let me just make a little bit of feria. If that's the angle he wants to take, right? That's called protecting, cuidando a camarada, right? But it just never works that way. Pee Wee for some reason said he had he couldn't get in touch with Rube. In reality, it was all lies. It's politics, right? Because Pee Wee knew he was going to have to start sharing that yard, right? That income. Nevertheless, by the time things came back, Wicked had his own crew already on the yard. They were doing their things. They weren't messing with what was the mesa, the rules, regulations. Something had to get done via Yarda rules. He was allowing us to take care of everything, right? Nevertheless, he's making fatty on the yard. Now I came back from the Pili, you're doing things for that. In other words, he's not authorized to, right? He's going rug, more so, right? Not in them exact words, but he's doing things on his own, right? Now keep in mind, different way is get a room, send me a wheeler that I'm under you, and protect the camarada like that, right? To work comfortably. But it's a pride thing, right? With Pilis. It went so far that at one point, right, there was a camarada from South Central that was in touch, with Sana and some other people. It was a neighborhood that, anyways, has a neighborhood out there in OC, right? And Homeboy hit, it was just one of them hits, right? Where sometimes material is good, and all three of them could have material, but the good one's gonna be the one that goes out, right? Or the one that the yard's gonna be looking out for, because word spreads, right? So anyways, jealousy comes into effect, right? The homie from South Central was kicking down to S from Pico, and Wicked didn't like that no more, right? He felt he could tap into something good, so basically he requested, that it was a disrespect to Rube. Keep in mind, Rube ain't even in the picture, right? He's just being utilized by a carnal that is playing games, for whatever reason. He don't want to get slammed, right? In ADX, whatever. Nevertheless, it should be a respect thing, right? It comes to the point, right? Once again, I don't know why Pee Wee will not be clear on things, right? From my personal experience, it would be politicking. Straight out, right? As he's been holding that for a couple yards. Homeboy gets there, he knows he has to split that pie, right? It's gonna slow down on him. It don't matter, right? Which is kind of dumb, right? Because for example, if you're hitting a pedazo every other week and you're the only one, right? Of course it's gonna go out every other week. It's gonna be dry already, right? But if there's 2-3 individuals hitting, they're all gonna make their feria. When I was in Ironwood, I worked with many camaradas in that sense, and it's never slowed down. You hit every other week, the yard was going to be clear every other week. It just works that way, right? The more dope, the more tecatos on the yard. But it just no slow down. But again, power, right? Power corrupts, and that becomes, instead of sitting down and analyzing, let's do things correctly, right? Nah, yo soy el más chingón. Yo soy un carnal, even though I'm not telling you. Now keep in mind, up to this point, the homie has not showed that I'm appeal from Pee Wee, where Pee Wee stating that chale. So when everything starts flaring out, guess the homeboy went up to him and showed him that I'm appeal, and that's where it hurt his pride, right? And Wicked, he got a Pilis where I was at, right? Well, more so he got a George, right? To get at Sana, to get at some people in the yard that were involved in his blessing, right? And it was a time where things take time. Sana directed to go ahead and George and Frankie to get at Pee Wee to correct things, but before they came down, things flare out. What do I mean by flare out? Homie was already disrespected, so enough was enough, right? So he went up to us and basically told me, you tell me, I'm going rug, I'm nobody, this and that, whatever, right? He took that letter to offense. you guys can kind of put them words between what they had, right? And as bucked up, right? He went what his Pili was telling him, which is, up to this point, I've been trying to figure out things. Ain't nothing came back. You can't sell on the yard no more. You do so, I'm gonna remove you up until you show proof, right? And then them words always come out. You know who you're talking to. You don't know who I'm touching. All them palabras that in reality cowards throw up instead of saying like, okay, you disrespect me directly. Let's suit up, boot up, and go in a cell, right? Of course, the homie ass was gonna lose because that's a pili. Nevertheless, there's no reason why to have palabras on the yard. In my opinion, that only lames do, right? We're a man's world. But everybody always tries to cover themselves behind palabras. Yo soy esto. I'm the más chingón. I did this, I did that. When that don't have no value, right? When things are flaring up on the spot. Nevertheless, cut it short, right? On you guys. And what it has relevance with what happened recently, right? The homie S and his crew, it just got so bad. There was no money being made on the yard no more. So they felt the way to correct things was to clean the yard, right? But a smart camarada knows, right? That if there's a camarada that's saying he's under pili, you're gonna boot up and ride it yourself, right? Because you're gonna put camaradas on the spot if things are as the vatos saying. They went to war. I won't sugarcoat around it. And they all end up on lockdown. You see, on lockdown, it's when all of a sudden Pee Wee reaches out with the truth, right? Hey, you're to stand down. You're to do as Wiki says. I got confused. Lies. Again, he did it for his reasons are his reasons, right? Again, I could only tell you the reasons why, right? And by that time it was too late, right? They had gone to war. S and his crew have moved on a pili. So you guys think it matter in the whole that Wiki kept it from everyone that he was a pili? That he had been blessed by Rube? Pee Wee was there, it just makes no sense, right? But it just shows how careless or how they don't care about camaradas. They know exactly what's going to happen. They know exactly what they're going to put a person that's been holding them down for them for years. Just don't have no meaning. What matters is don't lose it on the spot. What you did before, that, like I said, that never matters. But in the whole, it's when we could decide to come out the closet, right? And show what he was, tell what he was. Other camaradas that had reached to different pilis verified it, and just like that, right? You moved on a pili. Is a pili wrong? Yes. Is he entitled to do the way things he did? Of course. They're above the program. Did the homies get the benefit of the doubt? No. They all got whacked, and there was no coming back from them. 3 dudes from the mesa of S tried to come back. They got transferred to where we're at. Even though Sana at one point he expressed it to us, right, that Wicked was wrong, that was still his brother. He could not put a camarada before his brother. Right, wrong, indifferent, right? They got whacked again. At the time, that old man gave, not myself, but a few of us, clutch on it. How it happens a lot in the feds. At this time, right? It was happening a lot in the feds because it was real easy to get made in the feds. I never met one that paid his way in, but it was said it was even being paid in, right? So of course you ran across Billy's. You never even heard of his name as a camarada putting in work, But he gave us a clutch to stay trucha when things like this happen. The best option is for you to say, okay, Simon, ponle. Back down till definitely you have clearance. What I mean by clearance is you gotta always have black and white, and not necessarily if you're good or bad, but orders always come with a stamp, if you guys get it. Never release your power, never let go of the yard, cause that looks bad too. But don't ever step in the way, cause it's what's happening now. You see, after that, I had already came to that conclusion in the bay, sincerely, because I met so many pilis that up to date they haven't came out, but I know for a fact, and by word of mouth of other pilis, old members, they were made. So what do you think happened when they got kicked out to the yard? Or now that they're making camaradas to their choice? You see, this is what happened recently. One of my homeboys, I won't say his name, but he checked in, right? And a homie from Sanho, he checked in too. But the whole crew, that was under Sleepy, that went against a vato on the yard claiming to be a pili, and that Sleepy sat on that information on purpose Cause look, it's not only first come first serve, but when a Billy is present, he trumps any soldado that's on the yard for a Billy. It's exactly what Wicked could have done, right? I'm so and so, verified. That whole pinta is his game playing. It's what it is. At the end of the day, they know nothing's gonna happen to them. They know they're gonna have some fun, right? If they're like me, what is a couple cocos corones? Or going up right with pedazos. I'm not gonna lose. That's their mentality. You see, not only this, but as they told me, 6 other camaradas hit the hole because Sleepy couldn't verify. Remember, these camaradas are under Sleepy. They trust Sleepy. They ask and Sleepy says, Chales, go ahead and handle it. The mistake is, now with phones, how you gonna prove it? They hit the hole and it came out true that he was a recent made Pili that was getting to the yard. You moved on a Pili, you're done. Now keep in mind, I don't know what's gonna happen besides these 2 camaradas that are ready. They checked in, cause there's no coming back from it, right? Now I'm not saying it's right. Nah, it ain't right. Come out to yard, at least a couple more times and come out strapped. You can't clear up when they get sand on you. Buck up back. Eventually, there's no coming back, right? But again, you could say this new era, the way the Pilis are working, you never know, right? That Pili that washed these camaradas up recently could lock it up and all of a sudden they're good again, right? But anyways, this just happened in a 180 recently. Talking about days, not weeks, days, right? Again, it's not important who they were, cause I think it's shady how they're playing them, like straight lames. Come on, you as the person you're making money for, sacrificing, and he denies it, knowing the cross he's putting you. And then when things hit the fan, they never asked me. Go ahead, just for that, clip them. That's your pili. Anyways, this for those that not been in, right? That get camaradas to come out and they lie and tell you that prison is like a kid on Toys R Us, right? It's where a camarada should be to earn their stripes. Get what we need as camaradas. A bunch of lies and betrayals. Your life taken. Next thing you know, you hear all these soldados talk about, that side has this, and that. And what happens when you can't go against? That's your only option, right? You see, it's the new era, the new politic. Again, be smart. On the next episode, we'll be touching on a fool that he wasn't a pili, but he was a camarada, and already is out. So it goes to what we're talking about. Those that come out trying to get in your ear that one thing, be smart. There's too much for you to bite into that no more. Politics. What are politics? Please, someone tell me. Politics is what a pili wants them to be. Remember, sureños, camaradas, residents, whatever. There's no opinion in it. You'll never have one. So don't allow to get brainwashed. Stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones. Buenas noches.